Are you struggling financially? If you are, the 401k seems to be the new place that a lot of people are looking for funds. But I want to really caution you when we get through this video. Worrying about the new 401k trend is really setting off alarms when we look at the US economy now. A lot of people are using their 401k plans almost not as a retirement plan, but more of a savings plan slash emergency fund. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So a record amount of Americans have been tapping into the 401k plan to cover emergencies. Another warning sign that the economy is really struggling and a recession might be looming right around the corner. Nearly 5% in 2024 tapped into those 401k plans, resulting in early withdrawals for expenses like medical bills, avoid foreclosure of their home, making car payments, also looking at school, which some of these are tax exempt, which you can borrow from if you're a first-time home buyer. Some of these people are paying the penalty for. When we backtrack and really look at 2023, roughly 3.6% were advancing from that 401k. Even looking a little bit further back, we were at about 2%. So over the last 3 years, we have seen it almost triple from where we're seeing those 401k withdrawals. Now, before the pandemic, it was under 2% in its entirety, and a lot of people withdrew funds after the 59 and a half. Now, that is the age where you no longer get the additional 10% penalty. That is something to remember, that when if you're withdrawing from a plan, just like an IRA plan, if you're withdrawing under 59 and a half, not only do you pay state and federal taxes if it is applicable where you're at, but you will also pay a 10% additional penalty if there is not a reason for a qualified distribution. Now, this really sharp increase shows that a lot of households have a really big financial strain. Worry sign for the economy, worry sign for the tariffs and everything else that could be coming down the pipeline, including possibly that recession. When you start looking at, loans being in delinquencies, falling behind on car payments are now at a record rate of around 7% for subprime lending, means the payments are behind since January, and nearly 7% of Americans are losing their vehicles, which of course, for you and me, primary method of transportation to actually get to my paying job, they are still falling behind on these car payments. Around 30% of people who made withdrawals in 2024 were for foreclosure of homes. So again, we're seeing the auto loan delinquencies go up. We are seeing credit card delinquencies go up and balances increase, but we are also seeing a housing market that is going into foreclosure because they're either not able to pay the rent, or they're using it just to cover the rent if they're renting a house, if they have an apartment, covering those day-to-day expenses. Now, a lot of Americans that are enrolled in auto deductions, auto workplace 401k contributions, it is still the largest saving vehicle that we see for workers as today. A lot of people know that when it comes to Social Security, when it comes to that Social Security income, that is meant to replace roughly 40% of your income, meaning during retirement, they say you need roughly 80% of the income. So you have to figure out where that other 40% of income is going to come from when you get into those retirement years. And if you go into retirement with debt, if you have a mortgage, if you have credit cards, if you have auto loan payments, a lot of people cannot sustain with the account balances we have. When you start looking at retirement, we're about 165K on average in a retirement account when you hit the retirement age of 65, which carries you for usually about 5 to 7 years if you're supplementing it with Social Security, which means you could be living on Social Security all by itself. Now, when we couple all of this with the rising mortgage rates, when we look at the record amount of inflation over the last couple of years, it has put a lot of Americans in a financial distress, struggling to keep up with the car payments, struggling to make the minimum payments when it comes to the credit cards. That is exactly where I come in as a certified financial counselor. We've done some restructuring, we've done some adjustments to payments, consolidated some things. There's a lot of things you can do when you budget properly, when you allocate exactly where your money is going. And a lot of people do not do this at all. A lot of my videos, we talk about budgeting, we talk about that financial education aspect. And again, spending a little bit more time and effort, we might not see quite the delinquencies that we are seeing with just some education in the space. Now, when we start looking at this and thinking of Vanguard, well-experienced hardships is never a good thing. Having savings or that emergency fund is the positive thing that people can look into. Now, of course, there have been a lot of policy changes when it comes to retirement savings. really using that 401k plan as a rainy day fund before 2018. So again, thinking years ago, Americans had to take out 401k loans. So your 401k provider would just not give you the money. They would make you take out a loan. That loan resulted into more and a higher level of a payroll deduction. To repay the loan, you could only have one loan out at a time. This has been revamped. This has been changed. Around 13% of savers at that time had outstanding loan balances in 2024. So if you think about that, you're talking roughly 6 years still having a balance out there. Now, the IRS now allows usually locked up funds to be accessed if you're looking at a hardship, if you're looking at paying college tuition, if you're looking at being a first-time home buyer. And of course, the number of early withdrawals may rise even further because there was a secondary provision in 2022 that allowed for a one penalty-free withdrawal up to $1,000 to cover emergency expenses. So now we are living so far outside of our means that we are using and tapping into the 401k plans at $1,000 that they're going to give you as a one penalty free withdrawal to cover an emergency fund. When I think, and this reminds me just kind of flashbacks of Dave Ramsey's baby steps. Baby step number one, save $1,000. That is the goal in baby step number one. And of course, now the IRS is giving you the ability to take money out of the 401k. That first $1,000 is going to be absolutely free. However, that's not what we're seeing people take out. So the median withdrawal last year was around $2,200 to $2,500, meaning you get the first $1,000 free. The rest of it, you have to pay taxes on. The rest of it, you also have to pay penalties on, which can be very detrimental to that 401k plan. So those who took hardship withdrawals from 401ks must pay income tax as well as that 10% penalty if you're under 59 and a half, if you do not have those qualifying distributions. Last year, 401k balances rose on an average of 10%. Think about this for a minute. When you look at 401k balances, when you look at last year, roughly rose 10% overall. If you look at the S&P 500, last year we were at a 25% growth rate, meaning that one, people are taking out money a lot faster than they're putting it in, or two, your 401k is not properly invested like it needs to be, probably sitting in some target date funds that underperform what we're seeing with the S&P 500. And of course, stocks have been on a very turbulent ride. Actually, today was a down day. So we had 2 days that were green, that were positive, followed by the third day, which is today, that was really driving the stock market a little bit lower and staying in that correction territory. Wall Street, we know steep losses again over the last week, really rattled by Trump's tariffs. And as much as I'd like to say it makes a really big difference, we don't know what the impact of these tariffs are going to be. We don't know what the stock market is going to look like because they haven't been in place. They've been kind of warned and kind of played with. Then they've been put on the back burner or delayed. This has happened kind of time and time again. But amid the economic uncertainty and political headwinds that are going on, a lot of people look at the Dow theory. Now, the Dow theory means that when you look at the kind of core of America and looking at the large infrastructure companies, they are moving in the same direction, which means we could see a little bit of a down market for a considerable amount of time, possibly leading into recession. So what exactly can you do about this? When we think bigger picture, guys, this is the reason why we talk about an emergency fund and why I stress having an emergency fund is so imperative, because this is what is going to keep you from tapping into the 401k, looking at a lot of investment vehicles and sacrificing the retirement that you want to have by taking extended amount or taking an absorbent amount out of that 401k. That is the reason why 401ks are meant to be for retirement. They're not meant to be they're not meant to be your emergency fund. They're not meant to be something that you're tapping into. They are meant to strictly be for the retirement when the retirement time comes around. If you're an individual that is tapping into here, chances are, one, you might not be budgeting properly, but you might also have an honest and really tried and true hardship where it could be a job loss, it could be a displacement, could be an injury, something of that. There is a lot of resources. There's a lot of different things you can do. Talk to your financial institutions. Like I work in a credit union. That is where we do the financial education and counseling for absolutely free. So make sure you're using your resources before you go right into and start tapping into the 401k. So, all right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.